Hi, welcome to Sunday Stitch, and I'm Jen, and I like stripes. I like to put stripes in my knitting, um, but what I don't like is the jog. Nobody likes the jog. When you're looking at one of these other sides, very nice and pretty, right? But where you start around and you change colors, you will end up with a jog like that every time you change color. Now here I did one where I just knit and didn't do anything special. And in the second one, I used a trick that I'm going to show in this video. And it hides the jog mostly, somewhat. It's not perfect, but it's better than the alternative. Now if you just knit and change color at your beginning of your round and you have stripes like this with this jog in it, I'm sure you've seen it, and if not, you can certainly imagine what happens if you have that stripe repeated over and over and over again in your knitting, and you've got this constant break in the colors. It really draws the eye, and actually it gets to where that's all you can see, which is a shame because the rest of it is quite pretty. So let's talk about how to hide that jog. Now the beginning of my round is right here in the middle of this needle, and I've slip stitches over to show you what I'm looking at. So let me slip them back. I like stripes. I put stripes in almost everything that I make for me. For me, I like stripes. So this is a trick that I use a lot. I'm going to drop that pink. I'm going to give myself another white stripe. And you start just by knitting. You start this round, this new round, my white round, and knit. And the trick doesn't happen until you've finished the first round and you're ready to start the second round. So I'm going to knit this round, and then I'll catch up to you when I'm ready. Okay, I'm finishing up my first round with the white, like that. Now, even though I've never seen this written in any pattern, when you are making stripes in the round, here's one of the easiest ways to hide the jog. When you start the second round of your new color, the first stitch on that round, slip it purlwise. And of course that means take your right tip into the stitch as if to purl, put the working yarn in the back as if to purl, but then don't actually purl, just slip it. And knit the second stitch, but all the rest of the stitches in round 2. Here's my slipped stitch, and because when you slip a stitch you pull it up and you pull it a little tighter, and that's what's going to hide your jog. So I'm going to finish out round 2 of white, get back around to the beginning here, and I'll meet you there. I'm finishing up round 2 of white. This is that first stitch that I made of my white round, and you can tell because it's the stitch that slipped. It's the stitch that sits a little tighter. Finish up round 2. There we go. Now, for round 3 and any other round, however many more rounds you're making of this color, just work them normally. Just knit. So, to hide the jog, you work one round normal. The first stitch of the second round is slipped, and it's slipped purlwise, because if you slip it knitwise, you twist the stitch, so just slip it purlwise. All the other rounds are just it. And I will meet you at the next part. I am now finishing up round 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. Finishing up round 3. Now for me, that means in this little pattern, in this little cup, I'm going to switch to the pink. If you've seen this technique before, it's because okay, I'm finishing up round 3 of the white, and for me that's the last round of my little white stripe, like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 stitches in for me is where I know the beginning of my round is. Fortunately, when you start doing the slip stitch, it hides the jog enough that I have to count to figure out where my beginning of round is. Isn't that nice? Now, like I said, this is not perfect, but it does a good job of minimizing that jog. And if you've seen this technique, that's great because it's very common and it's used by a lot of knitters. However, what I wanted to point out is that if you're making something kind of like this cuff, where you have a lot of stripes and a lot of thin stripes that happen one right after another, the jog, the slip stitch that you're using to hide the jog can become a little problematic because, of course, every time you slip a stitch up, you're tightening your work. And if it always happens in the same place, then you've got this nice line of stitches that sit a lot tighter than all the other stitches around it. If it's a hat, maybe that's no big deal. But if it's a sock or a cuff or anything with negative ease, it's going to stretch out on your body. Yeah, it'll be just as noticeable as the old-fashioned unhidden jog right here. So this is what I do. I want to start a stripe with the pink, and I want to move the space where I'm making my jog. So I actually knit one more extra stitch with white. And now I start my pink, and where I'm starting the pink right here, this is my new beginning of round. And I will do that with every stripe so that the beginning of round and the place where I'm slipping my stitch is always sliding over by one stitch. It always slides over a little bit. It just makes for a better fitting garment. So again, I'm starting a new stripe with pink. I'm going to knit the first round normally. When I get back to this to start the second round of my pink, this first stitch gets slipped purlwise instead of knit. There you go. So that's my technique. I use the slip stitch at the beginning to hide the jog, and then I always knit one over and start my new stripe, my new beginning of round in a new place. I think it works out pretty well. Certainly works out better than that. Nobody likes that. So this is my technique. I hope you like it, and I hope you try it. Enjoy, and until next time.